Hey friends, Lord of the Rings is coming to Magic the Gathering and the 4 Commander pre-constructed decks have just been revealed. I'm making a video covering every single one of the Commander decks, and in this video we're going to be covering the Hosts of Mordor. This deck is all about having you take on the role of the bad guys in Lord of the Rings. And in terms of card mechanics, that means it's focused on orcs and goblins, spellslinger, and reanimation and graveyard shenanigans. The deck comes with 20 brand new cards that are exclusive to this Commander deck, and the rest of the deck is full of reprints, each of them with brand new Lord of the Rings artwork. So every single card in this deck features Lord of the Rings art, which makes it an entirely cohesive Lord of the Rings deck, and it's super sweet. But before we dive into the deck, 2 quick reminders. First, if you want to purchase the sweet new cards or any other Magic the Gathering products, you can head on over to our sponsor, cardkingdom.com/mtggoldfish. And number 2, be sure to like and subscribe to never miss these preview videos as they come out and all the other Commander videos that we come out with every single week. Alright, we kick things off with the big bad himself, the face commander of the deck, Sauron, Lord of the Rings. This is an 8-mana Grixis 9/9 legendary creature, Avidar Horror, and it says when you cast a spell, amass Orcs 5, mill 5 cards, then return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It also has trample, and whenever a commander an opponent controls dies, the ring tempts you. So to break down the new mechanics really quickly, amass Orcs 5 means you're going to make a 0/0 Orc army creature token onto the battlefield, and then put 5+1/+1 counters on it. So it's a 5/5 creature token. If you already have an army creature token, then you're just going to put 5 more counters onto it. So if you already have a 5/5 orc army and you amass orcs 5 again, you're just going to add 5 more counters onto the army and it becomes a 10/10 creature. And the Ring Tempts You is a brand new mechanic in the set. It's an emblem that you get the first time you're tempted by the ring. And the emblem gets better and better the more often you're getting tempted by the ring, up to 4 times. Each time you're tempted by the ring, you get a ring bearer, becomes legendary, and then the ring bearer gets a bunch of buffs if you go progressively higher in terms of tempted by the ring. So the initial response to Sauron Lord of the Rings is very underwhelming by people as soon as it got previewed, mostly because it costs 8 mana. But think of it this way. For 8 mana, you're going to put a 9/9 Trampler onto the battlefield. You're going to put another 5/5 creature onto the battlefield, or put 5 more counters on a creature. You're going to mill 5 cards, and then you're going to return a creature card onto the battlefield for 8 mana. So you put 14 power worth of creatures onto the battlefield, 9 of that with trample, and you're going to be returning another creature from your graveyard to the battlefield, most likely a really nice target, because you're also going to be milling 5 cards, so that's 5 more chances at more creatures being put into the graveyard before you reanimate something. So that's a lot of power onto the battlefield. It's at least 14, probably going to be something like 20, especially in this style of deck. There's a lot of big creatures on the top end that you really want to be reanimating with Sauron. So I think this card is actually pretty well costed for what you get. Yes, it's 8 mana. It's a lot of mana. You're only going to cast Sauron like 1 or 2 times per game, but whenever you do cast him, he's going to make a huge immediate impact onto the board, and your opponents are going to have to deal with him. So I really like that. And also, whenever a commander an opponent controls dies, the ring tempts you as like a little cherry on top. And as usual, the face commander kind of indicates what the rest of the deck is trying to do. So it deals with orcs, it amass orcs 5. It deals with mill, the deck is all about milling, and it's also about reanimation. The only thing this face commander does not really support is Spellslinger, which is another sub-theme of the deck. And if you're interested in focusing on that style of play, maybe the lieutenant of the deck is more interesting to you. We've got Saruman the White Hand. This is a 4 mana 2/5 Grixis commander. It's a legendary creature, Avatar Wizard. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, amass Orcs X, where X is a spell's mana value. And goblins and orcs you control have Ward 2. So while Saruman is more flexible than just Spellslinger, which is usually just instants and sorceries, it counts all non-creature spells, so even enchantments and planeswalkers and artifacts. It also works just perfectly as a Spellslinger commander because it does also count instants and sorceries. And then it also buffs goblins and orcs a little bit. It gives them a little bit of defense as well. So Saruman is just like an army in a can, just constantly buffing up a big creature as you're slinging your spells and having a great time with it. So if you don't want to spend 8 mana on your commander on Sauron, then Saruman is 4 mana. It's half the cost, much more reliably to get out onto the battlefield and start accruing value with. I'm personally a Sauron stan, so I'm going to be sticking to the face commander, but I really like having an alternate commander that can appeal to different sides of the deck. Moving on, we have 18 brand new cards that are exclusive to the deck. We start with Moria Scavenger. It's a 3 mana Rakdos 1/4 creature orc rogue with death touch and haste, and you can tap it, discard a card to draw a card. If the discarded card was a creature card, amass orcs 1. So this is a great engine for the deck. The deck is all about milling, putting stuff in the graveyard that you're going to reanimate later. It's all about orcs, and this is amass orcs as well. It's also a great blocker because it can trade up very easily, and you can start accruing its value immediately the turn it comes out because it has haste. Just a really, really nice value piece. Then we've got Orcish Siege Master. This is a new 3 mana red 0/5 creature orc soldier. Trample. Other orcs and goblins you control have trample. Whenever Orcish Siege Master attacks, it gets +X/+O until end of turn, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. The deck is all about amassing a huge orc army, so that orc army is easily going to get up to 10/10, even higher. So the Siege Master is going to be attacking, giving that orc army trample, which honestly, I think it should just baseline have trample. Otherwise, why is an army getting blocked by like a 1/1 squirrel token or something like that? Kind of weird. But this gives it trample, so it solves that issue. And it swings for a lot of damage too if you have a huge army. Next, we've got Corsairs of Umbar. This is a 4 mana blue creature. It's a 3/3 human pirate, and it has an activated ability, 2 and a blue, so 3 mana total. Target goblin, orc, or pirate can't be blocked this turn. And whenever Corsairs of Umbar deals combat damage to a player, amass orcs 3. So again, we're all focusing on amassing that big orc army. It's very easy for this deck to have a huge army in no time at all, and we're really leveraging that by giving it unblockable with the Corsairs as well. And then we've got Grima, Saruman's Footman. This is a legendary creature, a Dimir creature, 4 mana, 1/4, legendary creature, human advisor. Grima can't be blocked, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile an instant or sorcery card. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Then that player puts the exiled cards that weren't cast this way onto the bottom of their library in a random order. So for people who really like theft-style decks, and this Precon actually has kind of like a theft-style sub-theme to it. You don't really have a lot of synergy pieces off of it, but it is there. And it kind of fits with that villain role. You're playing the enemies, the bad guys of Lord of the Rings, and Lord of the Rings, the bad guys steal things. So it's very thematic. But the nice thing about Grima is that not only can he not be blocked, so you're always going to trigger that combat damage ability very consistently, but also he never whiffs. You're going to exile until you hit an instant or sorcery card. Now, sometimes that instant or sorcery is not going to be very useful. Like if you hit a counter spell, I mean, that's not going to do too much for you. But the fact that you have a very consistent ability is really nice. Next, we've got another legendary creature. It's Shelob Dreadweaver. It's a black legendary, 4 mana, 3/3 legendary creature, Spider Demon. Whenever a non-token creature an opponent controls dies, exile it. So nice graveyard hate. And then it has 2 activated abilities. You can pay 3 mana, 2 and a black, put a creature card exiled with Shelob into its owner's graveyard, put 2 +1/+1 counters on her, and draw a card. Or you can pay X, a 1 and a black, put target creature card with mana value X exiled with Shelob onto the battlefield tapped under your control. So I like this as just like passive graveyard hate. A lot of decks these days are graveyard hate and graveyard shenanigans. This shuts down like Sacrifice and Aristocrat decks. But also, if this stuff is passively dying, you can either draw cards and grow your Spider Demon with it, or you could start reanimating stuff exiled with it as well. So it's a nice value piece. And now we have another legendary creature. It's Lord of the Nazgul. It's 3, a blue and a black, so 5 mana total for a Dimir. 4/3 legendary creature, Wraith Noble. It has flying. Wraiths you control have protection from Ring Bearers. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 3/3 black Wraith creature token with Menace. Then if you control 9 or more Wraiths, Wraiths you control have base power and toughness 9/9 until end of turn. So there's 9 Wraiths, so the fact that once you have 9, they all become super powerful is really cool. And it focuses on Spellslinger. Like I mentioned earlier, there is a Spellslinger sub-theme, so it focuses on whenever you're casting instant and sorcery cards, you're putting creatures onto the battlefield. Wraiths aren't like a theme of the deck, but Lord of the Nazgul happens to provide the wraiths, all the wraiths you could possibly need, and also give them an additional buff. So that's really cool. Next, we've got Monstrosity of the Lake. It's another legendary creature. It's blue this time, 5 mana, 4/6, legendary creature, Kraken. When Monstrosity of the Lake enters the battlefield, you may pay 5 mana. If you do, tap all creatures your opponents control, then put a stun counter on each of those creatures. So you tap them and they don't untap for another turn. And it also has Island Cycling too. So this is a 5 mana spell, and if you are early game, you don't have enough mana to cast it, and you're really hoping to hit a land drop, then you can cycle it away, which is always nice. I love that flexibility. And then if you have 10 mana on the battlefield, you can cast this and also pay 5 mana and tap down all your creatures, hopefully swing for lethal right after. So it could be a finisher for that too. And then we've got Rampaging War Mammoth. This is a 7 mana, so 5 and double red, 9/7 creature elephant with trample. It has cycling X, 2, and a red. So you can discard this card and draw a card. And when you cycle Rampaging War Mammoth, you can destroy up to X target artifact. So you have to pay 3 mana to cycle it. And then you could pay additional mana to start destroying target artifacts at instant speed. And also it's very hard for this to be countered. You need a stifle effect for it. So I really like the flexibility here. I love my top end finishers to have cycling on them and also be good cards that you want to be playing anyway. And the fact that not only does this cycle early if you just can't cast a 7-drop, it's too early in the game to cast it, or you could just hold on to it and just dump all your mana into it to destroy artifacts at instant speed, or you could play it as a 9/7 trampler. Like, the flexibility here is great. I love this card. Next, we've got the Balrog of Moria. There's so many Balrogs. I think this is like the 3rd one or so, and this one is a really sweet one. It's a 7 mana Rakdos 8/8 legendary creature avatar demon with trample and haste, and when it dies, you may exile it. When you do, for each opponent, exile up to 1 target creature that player controls. It also has cycling for 4. So you're going to discard it to draw a card, but also when you cycle the Balrog, you create 2 treasure tokens. So you can see how Sauron is actually really, really good in this style of deck, because you could early on cycle away the Balrog, make 2 treasure tokens, use those 2 treasure tokens to cast your 8 mana commander, and then immediately reanimate the Balrog. It's an 8/8 with trample, and it starts smacking people with haste. Like, that's really good. And then when it dies, it has an additional trigger on that. So you can see how like this deck is actually built around the face commander in a way that I think when it was this first preview, people didn't really account for the fact that the rest of the deck is built around it. So I think Sauron's actually really good. Y'all should stop hating on Sauron, is all I'm saying. Give him a chance. And then next, my favorite card in the deck, Cavern Horde Dragon. This is a 9 mana red creature, 6/6 creature dragon. But this spell costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest number of artifacts an opponent controls. So if you're up against an artifact deck, they're generally speaking going to have 7 artifacts on the battlefield just naturally. So you can cast this for as little as 2 red mana. Generally speaking, if you don't have an artifact opponent, then whatever. They'll have a couple mana rocks on the battlefield who cast this for 5 mana instead of 9. That's great too. And the payoff is it's a flying trample haste 6/6 that also says whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you create a treasure token for each artifact that player controls, which is awesome. It's red ramp, and you can use that treasure token to, guess what, recast your 8-drop commander. So that works really well too. I love it. And then next we have a new sorcery. It's Summons of Saruman. It's X, a blue, and a red for a sorcery that says amass orcs X, then mill X cards. Then you may cast an instant or sorcery spell with mana value X or less from among them without paying its mana cost. And it even has flashback. You can pay 5 mana, 3 blue, red, and exile X cards from your graveyard to cast this again. So this fits exactly what the deck is trying to do. It's trying to mill yourself so you can get more value with reanimation stuff. It reanimates one of your instant or sorceries essentially as well, and it puts a big orc body onto the battlefield. And I love the flashback here. There's going to be a lot of cards that are going to be milling away with this deck, and there's going to be a lot of cards that you're never going to get back from the graveyard or don't have any intention of it, at the very least, like a bunch of lands or maybe some sorcerers or creatures that just aren't worth reanimating. Boom, you could just exile all of them to recast Summons of Saruman and keep getting that value engine going. Then we've got Lidless Gaze. This is a 4 mana Rakdos sorcery that says exile the top card of each player's library until end of your next turn. you may play those cards, and mana of any type can be spent to cast them, and then it has flashback of, again, 4 mana. So this card is essentially draw 4 cards, which is fantastic for 4 mana. You're on a time limit on when you can cast them, and obviously they're not all cards from your own deck, so there's less synergy there. But 4 cards for 4 mana is always very good, but the flashback is what really makes this card really sweet here, because this deck is all about self-mill. So you can incidentally just put the Lilith's Gaze into your graveyard with all your mill engines, and then it's essentially card advantage, further card advantage, because you're just casting a spell from your graveyard that you incidentally put in there. So I love this card. Next, we have Wake the Dragon, and guess what? It's another flashback card. It's awesome. This is a 6 mana Rakdos sorcery that says create a 6/6 black and red dragon creature token with flying, menace, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, gain control of target artifact that player controls. Again, it's dealing with theft and stuff. I love it. It's like a retelling of Bilbo's journey in The Hobbit with Smaug, I think. And then the flashback is 8 mana instead of 6. But again, this deck is all about milling and putting stuff like this into the graveyard, and you just get more value, more card advantage this way by milling a flashback card and then casting it from there. Then we have a big Haymaker sorcery. This is Subjugate the Hobbits. It's a 7 mana blue sorcery. This says gain control of each non-commander creature with mana value 3 or less. Personally, I think it shouldn't have this non-commander clause. Like, it's already restricted to mana value 3 or less, and it's a 7-drop sorcery. Like, the card's are already still good. I'll play it in a bunch of decks like Jaleva and stuff, but I feel like when you're spending that much mana on a single spell, you should just take the commanders as well too. I think that's a little bit weird to put that there, but whatever. Too greedily, too deep. Awakens the Balrog. This is a 7 mana Rakdos sorcery that says put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. That creature deals damage equal to its power to each other creature. So we've seen already that this deck has a lot of top-end Haymaker creatures, a lot of them that can cycle themselves away, and we have a lot of mill options. So this card is just great targeting our creatures, but if there's an even better target on our opponent's graveyards, then we can steal that too, and it doubles as like a pseudo board wipe as well. I love it. And we have a new Mana Rock. It's like a kind of a new Hedron Archive-esque card. It's Relic of Sauron. It's 4 mana artifact. You can tap it to add 2 mana in any combination of blue, black, and red, and you can pay 3 mana and tap it, draw 2 cards, and discard a card. I don't think this card is like good, but like Hedron Archive, I will run these type of cards if my commander costs a ton of mana. So in a deck with an 8-drop commander, yeah, I'm going to run this. If I was putting Saruman as my commander, a 4-drop, I would not run Relic of Sauron. I don't value a 4 mana Mana Rock that taps for only 2 mana very highly. And its activated ability is very expensive. It's not just 3 mana, it's 3 mana, and then you have to tap this 2 mana Rock. So it's essentially 5 mana to draw 2 cards and discard a card. But everything this card is doing is great for our deck because it puts stuff to reanimate later, it discards cards to reanimate later, and also it ramps into our 8-drop commander. So in this deck, it's fantastic. Moving on, we have the final 2 brand new cards that are exclusive to the deck. In the Darkness, Bind Them. This is either my first or second favorite card in the entire deck. It's a saga, 5 mana Grixis saga that says, Chapter 1, 2, and 3, you're going to create a 3/3 black Wraith creature token with Menace, and the ring tempts you. So you put 3 creatures onto the battlefield, you're tempted by the ring 3 times. And then finally, on Chapter 4, for each opponent, gain control of up to 1 target creature that player controls until end of turn. Untap those creatures, they gain haste until end of turn. The ring tempts you. So it puts 3 bodies onto the battlefield. It tempts you 4 times, so you max out on the ring tempting you, and it's like a tiny version of an insurrection, but this is a lot of damage that you could possibly do on a single turn, which I really, really like. And then the final card that is exclusive to the deck is the Black Gate. It's a new legendary land, Gate. As the Black Gate enters the battlefield, you may pay 3 life. If you don't, it enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it for 1 black mana, and you can activate it by paying 1 a black and tapping it to choose a player with the most life or tied for the most life. Target creature can't be blocked by creatures that player controls this turn. So basically, if you're attacking somebody with the most life, you can make target creature unblockable by that defending player. And it doesn't have to be your own creature too, so you can use this politically. You can either give your own creature unblockable, or you can make a deal with a mutual opponent and gang up on the person with the highest life total. So I really like this card. It's very flexible, and notably it's a gate. So if you put this in a gate-related deck, like if you want to win with Maze's End, you got another gate to win with. So that's really cool too. And there's also like Nine Fingers, the Sultai Gate Commander too, and this fits in that as well. So surprisingly flexible. Now, the rest of the cards are all reprints, but like I said before, all of them feature brand new Lord of the Rings artwork. So every single card in this pre-constructed deck fits thematically because every single one of them has Lord of the Rings artwork with them. So we start with a bunch of goblins and orcs. Goblin Crater Maker is a nice way of removing artifacts or picking off small creatures. Grishnak Brash Instigator supports the Amass Orc theme, plus it steals a creature as well for extra beatdown. Gutter Snipe focuses on instant and sorcery, so it focuses on the Spellslinger aspect of the deck. And Merciless Executioner is just a great way to just remove some creatures from the battlefield, and it's a nice reanimation target as well. Then we've got Treasure Nabber. I think this card is grossly underrated in Commander. Whenever an opponent taps an artifact for mana, you gain control of that artifact until your next turn. So it's stealing Sol Rings, it's stealing mana rocks and everything, and it's like an indirect way of generating ramp for your side of the battlefield. Anger, there's 101 ways to discard cards, to discard Anger into your graveyard, and then your entire team just has haste for basically no mana cost, which is amazing. Hostage Shaker fits the theme of stealing stuff. I don't think there's any other real synergies in the deck with it, but I mean, stealing stuff is just fun and evil, I guess, so you're playing the bad guy, and that's kind of the point of the deck. So boom, you're stealing something with Hostage Taker. Notion Thief, you're stealing people's card draw. Again, no like wheels or anything in this deck to make it super nefarious, but I mean, stealing people's card draw is just evil things that Sauron would get behind, I think. And then we have Goblin Dark Dwellers. It's reanimation for instants and sorceries. Siege Gang Commander. This deck is full of goblins, so now you can throw them at your opponent's faces. The Mouth of Sauron is a mass orcs. It's from the main set. There's Inferno Titan. It's just a good reanimation target. We've got Scourge of the Throne. I think this is a notable reprint too. I think it was pretty expensive. It has Dethrone, and it lets you attack with extra combats if you're attacking the person with the highest life total. Troll of Khazad-dûm. Another good reanimated target that puts itself into the graveyard and swamp cycles. Voracious Fellbeast, another great reanimate target. Nullspine Dragon is card advantage and also puts stuff as reanimation targets. Consider fits the Spellslinger theme, fits the reanimation theme. Same thing with Faithless Looting. Reanimate fits the reanimate theme. Arcane Denial is just a great counter magic spell. I think it's really, really good in multiplayer. And it's actually creeping up in price. I think it's almost $3 now, so this is a really nice reprint. Then we've got Feed the Swarm for removal, Thrill of Possibility, again, reanimation and Spellslinger, Forbidden Alchemy, again, reanimation and Spellslinger, Treason of Isengard also fits with Spellslinger and amassing orcs, Bitter Downfall, removal, Deep Analysis, Flashback, Spellslinger, reanimation stuff, all great. Factor Fiction, again, card draw, Spellslinger, it also puts stuff in your graveyard, Languish, a nice little board wipe. Extract from Darkness, it fits the reanimation theme again. Living Death, oh la la, I love Living Death. That card always creeps up in price, even though it sees a lot of reprints. But this is just a great board wipe. If you don't have a lot of creatures on the battlefield and your opponents do, boom, you get to reset it. And this deck is all about reanimation and putting stuff in the graveyard. So when you cast a Living Death, the stuff you're going to be getting back is 9 times out of 10 going to be better than whatever your opponents are getting. Boon of the Wish Giver, just really nice flavor. Decree of Pain, I love this board wipe. People say 8 mana is too much to cast these days, but I say I will not pass down card draw, basically. That card is sweet still. Blasphemous Act, this is a multi-format staple. Obviously, if you don't like Decree of Pain, you think 8 mana is too much, well, Blasphemous Act is the board wipe for you. It costs 1 mana, generally speaking. Everflowing Chalice is another mana rock. Sol Ring is in the deck as well as Arcane Signet, which, you know, everybody expects these to show up. Mind Stone, Basalt Monolith, Commander Sphere, Worn Power Stone. Our Commander's really expensive, so having stuff that taps for 3 mana like Basalt Monolith or Worn Power Stone tapping for 2 is really good in this deck. And then we've got Fiery Inscription. The ring tempts you, and also as a Spellslinger payoff. It's basically a Gutter Snipe as an enchantment. Shiny Impetus, I just love. It's very flavorful. I love this card in general. And Goading is also something a baddie would be doing, you know, controlling, manipulating the opponents. Revenge of Ravens makes it a little bit more dangerous to attack you as you're doing your nefarious plotting and scheming. And then we have a bunch of lands that got reprinted. Choke Estuary, I think, is actually a really good reprint. I'm a big proponent of Precons coming with lands that tap for mana fixing and also enter the battlefield untapped. That's a huge thing for me. I think tap lands are so 2012. We're in 2023. Come on, Wizards, just give us good mana bases. So Choked Estuary, I love reveal lands. Command Tower, amazing. Crumbling Necropolis, okay, it comes into play tap, but it taps for all 3 colors. Valid. Desert Lighthouse deals with reanimation, really nice. Dragon Skull Summit is another cycle that I really like. Check lands are really, really good here. Drowned Catacomb, another check land. Evolving Wilds, I do not think belongs in a 3-color deck. It's just too slow and too not good, I think. Field of Ruin, it's fine too. I like me some reveal lands with Foreboding Ruins. The Snarl is fine too. Path of Ancestry is good too. Rogue's Passage, our commander's a 9/9, so giving it unblockable is really nice. Smoldering Marsh, I like too, actually. I call them the Battle Lands. Some people call them the Tango Lands. Those people are wrong. They're Battle Lands. Then we've got more check lands. Sulphur Falls, Sulphur Springs. I love the Pain Lands, and we got the Pain Lands here too. Sunken Hollow, again, the Battle Lands. Terramorphic Expanse, not happy with it, but I like the artwork. And then the final card is Underground River. So that's the entire deck of Hosts of Mordor. If you like being the villain, if you like reanimation, if you like Spellslinger, if you like theft effects, then Hosts of Mordor is right up your alley. This deck is super sweet. I'm so excited to get my hands on it, but I want to hear from you all. Let me know what your favorite Lord of the Rings commander deck is and what your favorite commander of all of them are. I'm going to be making a video for the other 2 Precon decks that just got released, so be sure to like and subscribe so you'll be notified when those videos come out. They're going to be coming out later today and tomorrow. And that's it for now. So until next time, friends, see ya!